Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and we're going to be doing another tier list for Deep Rock Galactic today. Today, we have kind of a different tier list set up here, as you can sort of see. We're going to be ignoring the majority of this, because this was just the first list that I found that at least showed all the icons that I kind of needed. And we're going to be talking about the anomalies once again. I haven't talked about the anomalies in about a year and a half, maybe even longer than that. I think it was one of the very first tier lists I talked about Deep Rock, and so far nothing about it has really been changed. Maybe my perspective has kind of been changed, and I would like to kind of talk about each of these. I would also like to go over the various tiers that we have here. So for this one, I'm just doing 3 tiers, and this is very similar to the most recent Mutator tier list, where we have just our 3 tiers here. One is Life is Good. This is basically a Mutator that you always want to see, regardless of the mission type or regardless of what you're kind of doing. Our second tier is Great If You Need It. This is basically just a bonus most of the time, and it can provide you a lot of value. I didn't really know how else to really title these, so we'll kind of go over that once we get to it. And then we have kind of the whatever tier. This is just ones that you don't really care about if they show up on the screen, or at least I usually don't. Now keep in mind, I have played this game quite a lot, and I do have like all the overclocks and everything in the game, so certain things are kind of I don't really care if it's on the mission, but I'm going to try not to categorize everything with that sort of mindset. This is hopefully going to help out everybody at kind of every player level. So first up, our very first anomaly is Critical Weakness. And Critical Weakness is probably one of the best ones that you could possibly get on almost any class, with the exception of maybe Driller, but that sort of depends on what weapon you're using. Critical Weakness gives you 5 times the crit damage that you would normally do to enemies when you hit them in the weak spot. This makes it so basically every weapon and every overclock with any sort of projectile-based weapon can kill things incredibly quick. I don't believe this counts for tick-based weapons, so how the flamethrower does damage over time, it racks up ticks, same with the cryo cannon. Critical weakness doesn't really matter with them. I think it does count for the sludge pump though, or at least I would assume it would. The majority of the other weapons though, it definitely works out really well. If you want to take this with like Scout and have AI stability engine, you just rip through absolutely everything with the GK2. Same with the M1000 or the plasma carbine, the minigun. Basically everything gets way better with critical weakness, and it can make a substantial difference, pretty much negating like an entire tier up, sometimes even more so with certain overclocks. Like you can take mini shells with the Warthog with Engineer on critical weakness mission, go complete ammo and have something like 250 shots with your shotgun that's just one-shotting bugs all over the place. It is really crazy with certain builds. It's really crazy with the majority of builds, and it's really crazy with the majority of weapons too. So critical weakness is always something that you want to see. It's probably one of the best modifiers in the game. So going from one of the best to Volatile Guts. Volatile Guts is nowhere near as good as like critical weakness is. Volatile Guts makes it so whenever you kill an enemy, that enemy will then explode, depending on how you kill it. If you freeze it and then it dies, I think it dies the same. I don't think it explodes then. I could be wrong about that actually. Same with if you eat it with acid, I don't think it counts. But if you shoot it and just kill the bug normally, it will explode, dealing damage to everything around it. This can oddly enough counter Exploder Infestation, because this explosion triggers before the Exploder would, unless the Exploder detonates itself. So that's rather interesting. If you get both of these, it's basically just a free counter where anytime you see a swarm of Exploders show up, you can just kill one of them and you'll likely kill the entire horde of them. Very nice. You can get some extra value. However, the Volatile Guts can explode and hit you too, so you can take some extra damage. This one is sort of a strange modifier. I don't really hate it or anything, but I'm going to put it in kind of the whatever category. I don't really mind seeing it. I usually forget that it's in effect during emissions anyway, just because it's a little bit of a spectacle, but after you've seen it happen a couple of times, I guess you just don't process it then. So, yeah, I think I would put it in kind of the whatever category. Up next, we have Golden Bugs. Golden Bugs can kind of range from it's great if you need it to the whatever category. Golden Bugs makes it so every time a bug is killed, doesn't matter the size of the bug, this can be very useful with certain other modifiers, namely either parasites or with Swarmageddon. If you see either of them, you can potentially get a lot of money from this, and you can do it very easily. It's really good if you see it on something like a point extract, where you're going to be moving around and going back to the rig pretty often. On other mission types, it won't be as useful, like on Plague, where there's just less overall bugs. It's not going to be as great there, or Cave Leech Infestation, where the Cave Leeches, you're rarely fighting them. But every bug drops 1 gold. You can pick it up, and then you get extra money. can be useful if you have it, especially if you're not mining gold. If you don't feel like it's really necessary to be mining gold, then just getting that extra little bit of money can be pretty useful. It's going to equate to you just getting more money overall, and I'd probably put this one into the great if you need it tier. If you're really hurting for money, golden bugs is a pretty decent choice to be getting a fair amount of extra money during every mission that you would normally do anyway. Then we have Mineral Mania. Mineral Mania I'm also going to put in the great if you need it. Mineral Mania, I would argue, is probably better than golden bugs in most situations because minerals are worth a whole lot more than gold, especially if you need gold. Selling minerals is a way to do that, but a lot of overclocks, a lot of mods, a lot of upgrades in general in the game take a lot of materials, so just having excess materials that you can kind of hoard and then spend when you need them, or cash them in for other materials at the exchange, or potentially even just cash them in for just money, can be super useful. Then we have low gravity. Low gravity I'm going to put into the life is good tier. Low gravity is just so nice to have. It's so nice just to be bouncing around, especially if you're not playing scout. If you're playing gunner, or you're playing Ingi, or you're playing driller, there are times where just bouncing yourself a little bit higher would be so nice. Again, if you're playing scout, then low gravity isn't necessarily an amazing thing. It's not a bad thing though, because a lot of times with scout you're going to be taking fall damage. That's just part of being a scout. You're going to be getting up to dangerous places, trying to mine materials, and sometimes you're going to fall and hurt yourself. With low gravity, you hurt yourself significantly less. If you have low gravity plus tunnel rats, you basically don't hurt yourself at all from falling from any distance. In fact, I think it would be pretty difficult, unless you were intentionally trying to kill yourself with fall damage, to actually die from fall damage. About the only way I could see this happening is if you're playing scout and you're running like special powder on your boomstick and you're intentionally jumping up into the air and aiming this thing straight up so that you get flung into the ground. So yeah, low gravity, a big selling point, and it's always kind of a bummer when you go from low gravity missions, especially if it's a long low gravity mission, to the next mission that doesn't have low gravity, because everything just feels a little bit more difficult for you to do. Low gravity just makes it easier for everybody. It's easier to get materials, it's easier to fight and move around. It's easier to just not worry about taking fall damage, so just maneuvering the cave becomes a lot quicker too. It's all around really great. Then we've got bonus XP. This is just doubling your XP overall. This one I'm going to put in the life is good. It could be in the great if you need it, but there's almost never a time where just getting bonus XP is not just a pretty big buff to the player anyway. Even if you're really high level and you're just going for promotions at this point, you'll at least get promotions a little bit quicker. For newer players, it's fantastic because you can level up much faster than you normally would, especially if this is on a very long mission, since very long missions are usually more prone to having rare events. They're usually more prone to having helmets or loot crates, or you're finding some of the more rare items. Maybe you're finding machine events so that you can level up faster that way. Double XP is just really nice to add on top of that, where you're just getting even more XP and you're leveling up even quicker. So I think I'm going to put it in the life is good tier. Then we've got Gold Rush, and Gold Rush I'm just going to kind of put in the whatever tier. Gold Rush is not as useful as these other two. It's not as good as Mineral Mania. It's not as good as Golden Bugs. You'll probably get more from Golden Bugs. Now Gold Rush plus pots of gold can make a difference. You can get significantly more gold that way if you would like to. Gold Rush is also really good if you really like playing Driller, because if you see just a big vein of gold, you can throw a C4 on it, clear it up, grab it, and go. And it barely takes you any time to do that. Same thing if you're EPC mining or if you're learning to EPC mine. That can net you a ton of money if you like doing that, because it doesn't take that much time. Also, if you're just learning EPC mining, you're probably going to be trying that on gold, nitra, whatever you see around, whatever materials. Maybe you won't be using it on rare materials because you actually want to collect them and hoard them for other upgrades, but you're going to be trying it for gold all the time, because the worst that happens is you're messing up your EPC, and the best that happens is you're getting extra gold and you're learning to EPC mine. So in that situation, Gold Rush is really nice whenever you see it, and it's not particularly like a terrible thing or anything like that. I know plenty of people have talked about the gold mining economy, or how much it's really worth. You know, at the point where I'm at in the game, it doesn't really matter to me because I have everything, so money is to do whatever. It's just a number that's counting up now. For others, though, when you first get started, Gold Rush can give you a nice little bonus, and, you know, on the lower difficulties where there's not tons of bugs, you don't have to be worrying about resupplies and everything, then Gold Rush is perfectly good. On higher difficulties, where bugs are spawning in more often, where you're trying to get through the mission in a timely manner, so that way you're not needing to just look for nitra constantly to get resupplies. Gold Rush is kind of whatever then, at least in my opinion. And then our last anomaly is Rich Atmosphere. Rich Atmosphere gives you 2 effects. One is that it lets you move faster. That's really nice. That's actually a really good bonus. The second is that it increases the pitch of your dwarf's voice. So if you like playing Driller and you like playing Scout, they're going to sound very similar once you go on there. At least if you're playing Driller, you'll sound like Scout. If you're playing Scout, you're going to have a much higher pitched voice. It's a funny anomaly to have in there, but it's also really useful if you just want to get through caves quickly, which can be really good if you find it on like a point extract, where a lot of the times you want to get those missions done really quick because otherwise bugs are just going to keep spawning. So I'm going to put Rich Atmosphere up into the Life is Good tier. I think it's a pretty good anomaly. It's pretty fun, gives you a nice little advantage. There's not really anything to dislike about it. So I think this is where I'd put all of the anomalies. Basically all of them are bonuses to some extent. Some are more useful than others, I would say. But they're all generally a bonus and you like seeing them. Sometimes they can really make it so you want to go on certain mission types too, especially if you see some of these negative modifiers. You know, you see lethal enemies, which is really scary, but then you see critical weakness. That can kind of counteract lethal enemies. So, you know, you might be more willing to do that mission. Of course, seeing something like double XP on a mission type with maybe Lithiaphage Outbreak will get you a ton of experience overall, especially if it's a really long mission. So there is even better combinations than just getting a single anomaly. But this is where I'd put them. Tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. Which anomaly is your favorite? Which one is your least favorite? And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.